Hey everybody, it is Dr. Bradshaw here. I wanted to share with you kind of a how-to video on connecting artifacts to our course. So this week you are asked to look at some readings, look at some videos, some websites, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of different things. And then I have a historic artifact. Actually, I have two for you this week. Then I'm asking you to connect with. And what I want you to do is what's going to be explained in this video. Before I go on, I will say this is a video that is best to watch after you've already read the readings and looked at the content for the week. Otherwise, it's not going to have the same impact. So if you're watching it now and you haven't done your readings for this week, just go ahead and hit pause and come back once you have done your readings. Otherwise, you're not going to get the most out of it. So let's go ahead and jump in. So every other week, approximately, we're going to alternate. So this week, I'm giving you an artifact. Next week, you are giving me an artifact. And I will share another video on how you are going to give me an artifact. But this one is I'm providing you with an artifact, and I want you to find the connection from that artifact to all the stuff that you looked at for the week. So the readings and the videos and everything. And you can connect the artifact to the content that we look at in all different kinds of ways. And what I'm going to share with you today is I'm going to show another artifact, not the one that I'm asking you to do in D2L, but I'm going to share another artifact with you, and I'm going to do an analysis of it. And then I'm going to use that analysis to connect to the readings that I asked you guys to do. So it's the same readings, which is why you should watch this video after you've done the readings. And I'm going to mimic what I'm asking you all to do. So again, you are going to analyze the artifact first, and then you are going to use that analysis to help you connect to the theme and the content, the topic that we looked at for that week. So I have the artifact example. Again, this is an example. You are not to use this artifact right here. Your artifact is posted on D2L. So this artifact example is this guy right. Oh, he's kind of blurry. There we go. This guy right here. Looks kind of creepy when you put them like that. There we go. It says the human mind. There's another picture of him right there. But this is a phrenology model, and I'm being really nice and going and telling you what it is, because otherwise you're going, there's a weird head with some writing on it. But phrenology, and I'm also providing you the definition here, is the detailed study of the shape and size of the cranium as a supposed indication of character and mental abilities. Okay, so this is a thing. I don't know if you knew it existed, but it existed. And so I wanted you to know that before I asked you these questions. So these are the analysis questions. You have different ones for this week for your actual artifact that I'm asking you to look at. But these are the ones that I wrote specifically for this artifact. So the questions may change each week. So it says, describe the artifact. What is its shape? How does it feel? What's the quality of materials using gradient? So I'm holding the artifact, so it's shaped like a head. It feels very smooth, and I feel like maybe it's probably porcelain. When I think about it, it's not the actual size of my head, so it's kind of a little mini version. So I'm not exactly sure if this would be a real model that would be used. Maybe it's just kind of like a imitation of it. I wonder if the real one would be like the actual size of my head. So what are some of the qualities shown on the skull? And I'll show you some up close pictures in the next slide, but let's go ahead and go there. You can see you have things like concentratedness. Actually, I didn't even know that was a word. Compassion, causality, intellectual region, individuality, language. This entire region is common to the man and the lower animals. So like, this is interesting right here. Region of the common to man and the lower animals. Then we have things like I can't read that. Animatedness, creativity. So all sorts of interesting. Looking on this one, you can see also secretiveness, wit, time, tune. So are they going to be very musical? All of this was indicated by the shape of your head, okay? And like these regions of the head supposedly controlled those things. So those are some of the different areas that were on there. Who do you think might have owned this artifact? How might they have used it? So I'm going to assume it's like maybe a doctor or a teacher, a principal. And because I'm a historian, I actually know that this was actually used as matchmakers. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the Tinder of the 19th century, I guess. It's like, hey, come and meet the person that you want to be with, match.com for the rest of your life. We're going to fill your head, we're going to fill their head and see if you were compatible. This actually happened to like people who were supposed to get married. They went to go see the phrenologist to see if they were a good match. So what problems could arise from the use of such an object? I see a lot of problems that could arise from this. But one of the main things is that it assumes that your brain size and your skull shape equals your potential, which is not true. There's all sorts of things that we know come into play. They didn't know that back then, though. There was a lot of studies going over, is it your experiences that you have, or are you born, like, are you fated to be an amazing scientist and things like that. So they're wrestling with this then, and we're still wrestling with it now. Like, should people change their DNA to have the smartest kid out there or a kid without disease? So based upon this, you could have been labeled as dumb based on the shape of your head, and missed out on opportunities that other people would have. When you think about the difference between different genders, different sexes, you could also, in like the different gendered opportunities for people, you could also think about different races. And, we all don't have the exact same facial features. We're not all the same height. Some, depending on where you're from, your physical appearance is not equal to your intellectual capability, but that is the assumption that this made. So that is tied into a whole bunch of other issues. So there's a lot of things that could come out of this. Also, what if you were that poor person who your mama said, okay, well, we're going to go to the phrenology matchmaker, and whoever head we feel and we think that they're the best match, then that's who you're going to marry. I mean, I can't even imagine. All right, so this is my synopsis. So going through the steps, remember we had my artifact. I gave you a set of questions just like I gave you this week. So you then answer those questions, which is what I did. And now I'm kind of making like a synopsis of it. And this is just for me. I don't ask you to write a synopsis, but it's to kind of generalize what it is you're thinking about it, because you want to take this analysis and use it to make your connections, because that's where you're going to start finding the connections to the theme for the reading and everything. So my synopsis is that a middle-class teacher could have used this object to try and assess his or her students' mental capabilities. Many problems could arise from this for their students. So phrenology, I mean, this is what phrenology kind of manifests as. It's scientific racism. It's the idea that certain head shapes equal perfection and others are more animalistic, which, as you can see, this is an image from a textbook. This is what people were taught. in the 19th century, where it shows like kind of this Greek ideal of being the most intelligent, and seeing like people from Africa as being kind of subhuman, closer to animals. And you also have people like measuring nose sizes, measuring the distance between here to here and here to here. And that's going to, what they assume is going to be based on how intelligent you are. And this was used with immigrants. You would have the Nazis that would do this in the 20th century, when they did all sorts of experiments, not just on Jewish people, but Africans, gypsies, anybody that they seen that they portrayed as other. So kind of this physical equals mental capabilities. You can see all sorts of, racist and classist and societal problems that come from that. But phrenology, it seems ridiculous to us now, but it was widely accepted in the 19th and early 20th centuries. So I'm going to use that when I'm thinking about my connections to the week's readings. So looking at how I'm going to make my connections for the week. So I brought over my synopsis here again, because I'm still keeping that in my head. So I'm thinking about the different topics that were discussed this week. So we have like the common school movement. So common schools, it's a great idea. Horace Mann sounds cool. But you also have to think about kind of the root of it, which is the fact that you had all these children who Horace Mann and many others saw as kind of like the riffraff and the street urchins of the time. And we wanted to get them off the street. It's trying to kind of make the best of these societal problems. They saw them as basically causing problems. So we need to educate them to try and make them better, to try and kind of stamp out these bad qualities that may exist in them. So again, that's kind of connected back to that scientific racism and these class divisions, which education is seen as a possible solution for. You also have the idea of an ideal teacher. So you guys looked at the video of Ichabod Crane and kind of how he was seen as sort of ridiculous. And, teaching was it wasn't a profession that was seen good for most men, because you had the feminization of education coming in. And we have this assumptions about what is acceptable for men and what is acceptable for women. And this is an acceptable profession for women based on that society's standards. Again, like this was an looking at, we're trying to think about what society wanted. We wanted, wonder and imitation, and we wanted compassion. Those were the things that were accepted by society at the time. I can think about, again, the feminization of education and the certain roles that people were accepted into and which roles they were not. So if you didn't fit the phrenology model, then you were kind of pushed into other categories. And the reasons behind that, a lot of them are going to be financial, like it was for the feminization of education. And then we can think about historic mistakes in education. There's a lot of them. There's a lot. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes in the future. New things and new ideas come all the time in education because we're trying to constantly make it better. I mean, this has a lot of racist and, issues with it, but I still think, and I do believe it's also something that was used to control, they were trying to control the populace, but I don't think it was made entirely with bad intentions. The idea was that we're trying to figure out how the brain works so we can make the world a better place. As educators, we're always trying to make the world a better place. That doesn't mean we're always gonna, hit the home run every time. And there are a lot of mistakes that you're going to see in education. This is just one of the many little blips. You're going to see how certain historical educational movements historically, sorry, my clock is going off, it's very loud, have been very popular for a time and then they fade away. We see that actually over and over again in education, and how it kind of is this push-pull pendulum thing. So I can make that connection as well. So again, looking at all of these connections, I would write up a little paragraph explaining how this artifact, and again, that's the synopsis I wrote over here, kind of connects to all of these different things that we looked at in the reading. It should be, I would say, about a paragraph long. You don't have to include a synopsis per se when you're writing in D2L, but you do want to include the questions and answers for your analysis that I wrote in there. So you can just copy and paste them and answer your questions out, and then write a nice paragraph about how this is, your analysis is connected to what you read for the week. And then that is it. So I look forward to seeing your analysis, and next week you will be actually creating your own artifact, and I'll have a separate video on that. It's not as scary as it seems, I promise. It's actually a lot of fun. Have a great week, you all. Bye-bye.